Good morning, everyone. I'm David Cory, and we are with the Emotional Intelligence Training Company, and I'm here with my colleague, Mr. Kim Cairns, and we're here to talk about interpersonal relationships, which is one of the 15 EQ competencies of the MHS model of emotional intelligence, which is based on the original work of Dr. Reuven Bar-On. So interpersonal relationships, it occurs to me that interpersonal relationships is kind of like a result or a goal of emotional intelligence. And so it's kind of funny that it is one of the 15 competencies and a resultant factor. And it's also one of the most important factors in longevity and happiness, based on a number of studies, one of the most famous being the Harvard longitudinal study, one of the longest longitudinal studies in existence of Harvard graduates. And really, the ones that had the better interpersonal relationships were the ones who lived the longest and had the most satisfying lives. Kim, what comes to mind when you think of interpersonal relationships?
Well, I think that it's just key in every aspect of our life, from the word go. As we come into being, our relationship with our parent figures is primary right from the start, and so that just continues through life. And I think that with regard to those longitudinal studies, what they found is that people that are connected are generally happier through their lives. And that happiness and fulfillment can last even through periods of perhaps physical ailments, health issues, but connection makes that easier to deal with for people. So we find that people that are more solitary at that in those times in their lives don't do as well, don't recover as quickly. So it obviously has a lot of impact on how we are operating internally by our degree of connectedness outside, I think.
Kim, can't I be happy without relationships with other people?
Well, and it's an interesting point, Dave, because I think that, a lot of us derive happiness from solitary time too. But it's not that either or, it's both. And it's that balance of, right? It's that balance of enjoying being by myself and taking joy in being with others. And in taking that joy in being with others, knowing that there's a responsibility to contribute to that situation. It's not a take. So again, it's give and take within that. It's both, not either or.
Right. So there's one of the words I believe that is in the definition of interpersonal relationships as an EQ competency is this idea of mutual, that relationships are mutual, that they're not one way. It's not just about us giving to others. That would be more like social responsibility. And it's not just about us getting our needs met, which would be which is more assertiveness. It's about a give and take that is interesting, and it's interesting to think about all the different areas of our lives where we have different kinds and types of relationships, and that. And this idea that we have mutually satisfying relationships in the workplace. It's kind of a weird idea, don't you think, Kim?
No, I don't think it is a weird idea, actually. I think that it's an essential idea that mutuality is so important. And I think what it speaks to, again, for me, is being really fully present in interactions. So I'm aware of what's going on for me, but I'm also equally paying attention to what's going on for the other person. And that capacity to pick up on cues, verbal and nonverbal, about how that conversation is flowing. And it's developing those skills of getting comfortable within that context. So again, it's that self-management part. If I'm a person that normally does not like to enter into a large social setting where I don't know very many people, it's about, perhaps part of my self-management is I'm going to take this one person at a time. I'm not going to be looking at the crowd as this obstacle, but perhaps a helpful cue for me would be to just say, I'm just going to take it one person at a time. I'm going to engage fully with one person at a time and see where that goes.
Right. Yeah. So we have these different preferences with respect to how we engage with others, and I can still just imagine my father, my late father, who was a manager his whole life, just kind of having the belief that, well, those people worked for him. They were sort of there at his bidding, and that was kind of his notion. And so, the idea that he could have actually personal or social relationships with those people would kind of be beyond his understanding. And so, here we are talking with different generations in the workplace. Some generations which are all about the social and all about the making friends on the job, and working closely with those friends, and then others who are a bit older, and how they kind of see those social interactions as being off task and not being productive. How do we help them to understand that those those great relationships can be very productive and effective in terms of getting work done?
Well, I think one of the key parts is people always bring up the word boundaries. It's important to have boundaries. And yes, it's very important to have boundaries, but it's also very important to not be totally bound by those boundaries. And so I think that is this an opportunity to stretch out of that a bit? And what's my desired outcome here?
Yeah.
There's that realization that those people that are reporting to me are not my serfs, actually. They're human beings. and that it's going to be beneficial for me to strengthen my relationship with them. We're in charge of the depth that we go. So that's where the boundaries come in for me, I think. And you're in charge of the depth that you want to go, but to keep it at a real shallow level all the time is not going to contribute to any development in that relationship.
Right.
So those are just kind of, I like to always think about what are key kind of reminders in my head about what the desired outcome here is.
Right. Yes.
And I'm also struck, Dave, by, one of the things that we do with a number of groups is we have people break up into pairs. And the exercise is, if you really know me, you would know that, and then describe something about yourself that the person's not aware of. And I think that can be a really useful tool. And it's not about necessarily having to dive really deep right off the bat, but it's diving deeper than, isn't it a great day out today? How are the Blue Jays doing? How are the Calgary Stampeders? How about those Stampeders? It's about taking it to a different kind of level. And I think there is that yearning within all of us to have deeper engagement with people. So to be the initiator of that, I think will yield benefit a lot of the time.
And I think really, one of the great things about emotional intelligence in the workplace, Kim, is that we're bringing more of who we are as human beings. And so we use the picture of the iceberg to describe us human beings. That there is this part above the surface that we see, and that's our first impression or our body language or whatever it is. But there's all this going on beneath the surface, and I like what you said. It's about choosing the depth to which we go with different people. And yes, we're going to have boundaries, but it's also about understanding that those boundaries, in a sense, are changeable. That and I think that traditionally and historically, those boundaries have been more about I'm the professor and you're the student. I'm the physician and you're the patient. Or I'm the lawyer and you're the client. Well, actually, you're a physician or you're a lawyer or you're a professor, but you're also a human being with all of that beneath the surface world that is there for the sharing. And when we share, we just find that incredible connection that comes with that sharing. And so it is about how much do we want to share, and with whom? Who's important to us? What are those relationships that are going to be really really wonderful to have with people that I have to spend a whole lot of time with. In some cases, we have to spend a whole lot of time with those people, and why not make that enjoyable? Why not make that a mutually satisfactory arrangement by sharing life with all of its pleasant moments and happy times, as well as the not so happy times, the sad times. And when we share those sad times, of course, the burden becomes less, and it just becomes easier. I don't understand myself why you would not want to have a closer relationship with the people that you work with, but other people are pretty clear about that.
Yeah, and I think, Dave, for me, it's not even necessarily always about happiness. I mean, I think about situations where there's been conflictual relationships in the workplace. And I think then, for me, the desired outcome is maybe not happiness or a very friendly relationship with that person, but a more effective relationship with that person. So to take the conversation to a depth of it seems to me that we end up having conflict on a pretty regular basis. And obviously, to me, we're coming at this from different perspectives, and I appreciate your perspective. And rather than getting into this kind of headbutting notion, or it's either my way or your way, I think that we would both be better off if we could just have a healthy respect for each other's different perspectives. I don't have to be absolute friends with that person, but I've taken it to a level where I appreciate that they can have their own perspective on something, and there will be value in that in our ongoing interaction in the workplace. So again, rather than just being quiet about, I get really tired when Frank talks like that, and I've got that voice going on in my head, and Frank probably has that same, similar kind of voice going on in his head. But if we can take it to a different level of, yes, we are different, and we don't agree on very much. But how can we make that work in this situation with regard to this project, with regard to this issue in the workplace, with regard to the fact that we're both working for the same company and headed in the same direction in terms of what that company is out to achieve? So how do our different perspectives contribute to that rather than cause a conflict that stops growth from happening?
Yeah, and I think that this is an important idea. This idea that it's about maintaining the relationship through whatever you have to go through, and we're gonna have conflict, and of course it's Patrick Lencioni's sort of second from the bottom of his pyramid, and in terms of dysfunctions of the team when teams have difficulty with conflict. And we would really like to see teams that that really embrace conflict and think that, okay, conflict, great, we're gonna get something good out of this. We're gonna get something better than we could have come up with on our own. And of course, the base of the pyramid is trust, and there's a reason right there to want to create those kinds of social situations where we get to know people, and we get to understand them, and we get to share about us, and just really allow trust to develop organically, rather than trying to force trust. It's one of those things that's very difficult to force between people is trust, and it really just happens through authenticity, through depth of relationship, through people acting with integrity and having an opportunity to be part of that integrity, to experience integrity, and then trust develops, and then we have a better working relationship. And it's so interesting when you talk about relationships and the exercise that you mentioned, Kim. We had an opportunity to witness that this week, where yes, it is a contrived situation, and yes, we are trying to force deeper relationships, but we do it because there's a point to it, that it really forces you to think about relationships and how much you want to share and with whom you want to share it. And you know, it's a fantastic relationship, or it's a fantastic exercise that I first learned about from the people who offer Challenge Day with high school students. And it really is one of those exercises where people are really forced to think, what do I want people to know about me? What do I want to share? And what does it mean to know someone? And what would that mean if people really knew me? Well, one of the things that we consistently find that it means is that when you share from what is beneath your surface, people don't use it against you. It's just so rare that there's this fear that people feel like they're going to use it against me, and instead people are just drawn closer when they find out that, you know, you're human like the rest of us. And isn't that interesting, Kim, when people finally share those things, and we've heard some pretty heavy things that people have been willing to share in those situations, that it just seems to bring people closer together, doesn't seem to drive them apart. I don't know how to help people to understand that concept. So,
well, and I think you're so right about that. It's that immediate feeling of, I think for a lot of people, what I hear them say is it's relief. I was terrified to be vulnerable, and then I took a chance, and I couldn't believe how that information was received. And that relief just flows through people. It's just, wow, this has been so great to have overcome this fear of being vulnerable in this little moment in time with somebody else that I'm in a seminar with, or in a workshop with. And what I hear in the long run from people is, that was one of the most meaningful things that happened to me in that 2 days, or in that one day. And I've actually tried that with my partner, with my spouse, with my mother, with my father, with my kids, and really, you know, wonderful, fulfilling conversations have flowed from that. And so when, you know, I think when people see the benefit of it, and it's about risk taking, it's about, you know, saying to myself, this is worth it to take a risk in this situation, and I'm going to be uncomfortable initially, but let's see where it leads. So again, coming back to that whole notion of get a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and have that be an okay thing to even think. It's like, yes, it is okay. It is. I need to get better at being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Good things will result.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there's just something so nice about that connection, that mutual connection. And if there are relationships that we want to improve, Kim, how might we begin to improve those relationships that just aren't where we'd like them to be, that we'd really like a deeper or better connection? Where would we start?
Well, I think there's a great intro to being assertive about what it is I want. I would like a deeper relationship with you.
Right.
I feel that there's room for more depth in our relationship. So when we go out for dinner and we both whip out our devices, I feel like there's not a lot of connection there. I feel like we're both being distracted. And what I'd like to see in that situation is for us to agree to just both be fully present as we eat dinner, and really spend some time talking about what our day has been like, what our week has been like, and to engage in that conversation, because I would find more meaning in that. And I think it would be beneficial for both of us, and definitely beneficial for our relationship. So to be able to articulate that to the other person, it's not about what I don't want to see you doing, it's about what I'd like to see us doing together.
Right, absolutely, and if we're looking at some of our other competencies to assist us in the process, I think empathy is just so powerful. I mean, just to both turn our attention and focus our inquiry. You know, and it's you know, as as I've said many times before in front of audiences, it's like saying how's it going, and really meaning it, like really wanting to know, and really, you know, staying present for the answer. So it's not how's it going as a pleasantry, it's how's it going as a truly meaningful question, and
Yeah.
and staying present for the answer, whatever that answer happens to be. And if how it's going is terrible because of some life situation or circumstance, then it's just, you know, hanging in there for that, and being present for that person while they tell you about their grief or their sadness or their the upset in their life. And this is hard in the workplace, Kim. People, you know, people really don't want to you know, take the time out of their busy schedule for this. And so, you know, we want people to understand the benefits and the payoff of really paying attention and being there for people, particularly if you're the manager. It's huge coming from a manager versus a peer or a report. That you're actually willing to spend the time and the effort in empathizing with someone in that situation.
Yeah, and I think a key point there, Dave, is just the communicating of that. I think when people hear, "Oh, I'm really busy. I'm just swamped right now. I really don't have time for this," is a very dismissive way of interacting with somebody. Actually, it's inferring that, well, I'm way busier than you. You may have time to talk about this, but I surely don't, because I have more important things going on. So to be able to turn that statement into, I'm very interested in hearing more about what you have to say there. My morning's a bit jammed. The rest of my day is a bit jammed. But can we set up a time tomorrow to talk about this? Because I'm really interested in hearing more about what you have to say. Has a totally different impact than I'm swamped right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you know, you do have deadlines. You do have work that has to get done by a certain time, and we are not saying that you throw all that aside and just spend time focused on the other person. And there's also a perhaps a bit of a limit to it as well. I mean, you can't spend the entire day with someone dealing with a personal issue, because of course we have to somehow figure out what that limit is, and how to put some sort of limits on that, and again, book additional time, line up additional resources, or something like that. But the communication of the caring, you know, I really want to support you with this. I really want to be here for you, and we have this this work that has a deadline to it.
Yeah, and I think in stating that, it's being fully present even in stating that, not tossing that over my shoulder, but making sure that I'm communicating that I do in fact care about what it is you have to say, and given my busy schedule, I'm interested in scheduling a time that'll work for both of us. Those are indications that actually you matter to me, and I do want to hear what you do have to say, and I want to contribute to that conversation as well. So there's just, you know, there's being present, right? Being present in that moment. That takes what, 20 seconds to say that, but I've been present in that moment, and I think more often than not, that's received as, okay, I've been heard that this is an important thing that I want to talk about, and I can understand that this is not the best time for that other person, but they're going to make time. So that just sets me at ease just hearing that.
And we've mentioned assertiveness, but I also want to throw in emotional expression in there too. It's like letting people really get to know you. It's like I'm feeling good about our relationship right now, or I think I think that things could be going better between us. I'd like to work on that, or just that just maybe, you know, I really appreciate you. we don't say that enough. And isn't it nice to hear that we are appreciated, or that we matter to someone,
Yeah.
and we forget to say it, and it's a few words. You matter, but you know, important, and again, coming from your manager, to say, you know, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate what you did. I appreciate the extra effort. I appreciate your performance on this project. Or these little things sort of go a long way to developing that better relationship that we all want with our colleagues at work.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when we're changing behavior. I think it's important to keep in mind that if I'm running into difficulty with you right now with regard to a work project, one strategy might be for me to say, Dave, you know, remember that project we were working on and we were having difficulty, and then we managed to pull it together. Let's look at how we managed to pull that together, and look at what the great result was there. I wonder how we can bring some of that energy to this situation. You know, so there's always opportunities to, it doesn't just have to be in the moment that I'm commenting on. I can bring some historical perspective into that too, where maybe in that instance I didn't say anything to you about how I enjoyed working with you on that project. So it's, and that's going to cause someone to pay attention to and say, wow, like you actually noticed that, and now you're articulating that, you're expressing that to me, and that feels good, and that lands well, and encourages me to take on that perspective of working together again. So again, it's being present, being curious, being authentic, and expressing what's going on emotionally, and bringing that empathy piece in consistently too.
And discussing those two things that we often talk about, Kim: intention and impact. Being explicit about those. Well, what is my intention in this situation, and in fact, the impact on me of your behavior was this, and so we're able to negotiate that relationship based on making the implicit explicit. We think we know. We make a lot of assumptions. We don't necessarily know, and so it is about being more explicit and providing a lot of communication around those areas of the relationship that may be a little hazy when in the absence of other information.
Indeed.
And what we know is we make stuff up when we don't know.
We're really good at making stuff up.
Absolutely. So,
there's a lot of creative writing in those thought bubbles that pop up.
Absolutely. I don't hear from you, and I think I should hear from you, and I'm making up all kinds of stuff about all kinds of reasons why you haven't called, or you haven't let me know what's going on, and that's just what we do. So being more explicit about about what is implicit, and being clear about intentions, and also reflecting back impact. So that people know, and they can course correct. In the absence of feedback, there's no course correction. We're going to continue on the path until we get feedback telling us that, you know, that was good or not good, and we need that feedback to improve. So I noticed that we're coming up to the end of our time, and so just some final thoughts, Kim. Just what final thoughts would you like to leave people with respect to interpersonal relationships?
Well, I think just some time for reflection about what are the relationships in my life, what's important about them, and what am I bringing to that situation to continue to nurture that importance. And I think if those are kind of my guidelines, that's gonna take me in some pretty good directions. So just some regular reflection on what are the relationships in your life, and how are they different, and what are you contributing and watering in each one of those situations to make them grow.
Thanks, Kim, and I'd just like to add to that I think that we that most of us have something that we should say to somebody. So, what is that? What is that information that someone should have in order to improve the relationship? And then, who needs some of your time? Who do you need to go and just be present for? Just just ask them how it's going, and just really listen, and just really feel with them, and so that you really know where they are and what's going on for them. So we just encourage all of you to think about the relationships in your lives, and both at work and at home, in the community, etc. And where can you improve, and how can those relationships best be improved? And if you don't know, ask, reach out, open up those lines of communication, and have a two-way dialogue with those people that are important to you in your life. I just don't think there's any downside. You might learn some things that might be unpleasant, but hey, that would be honest. It would be the truth. And why live a lie and believe that something is otherwise? So we just encourage all of you to improve your relationships, and we'd love to hear from you. Email us, David at EI Training Company or Kim at EITrainingCompany.com. I would love to hear from you. Love to hear how it's going with your application of your EQ competencies. So until next time, I'm going to say goodbye from me, David Cory, with the Emotional Intelligence Training Company. And Kim, I'll let you say goodbye, and then I'll end the broadcast.
Thanks for joining us again, folks. Look forward to hearing your EI stories, and look forward to our next broadcast together. Take care. Until next time.